And greetings, everyone. Welcome to Brony Debates. Oh, I'm getting an error on my stream, so I hope, which is lovely. I didn't know that was going to happen. Hopefully, everyone can hear me okay. So, while we find that out, let's actually, you know what? I can ask these guys here. So let's welcome Pony Cordero and Mr. Stephen Wolf. Mr. Stephen Wolf is joining us for the first time today. How are you gentlemen doing?
Good as always.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Let's see here. Let me
The
pop
stream
over.
is live and they can hear you.
Okay.
I just put the volume in my ear and it's going.
All right, cool. All right, that's good. That's good. Yeah, for some reason I was showing an error on my side, but as long as the stream connection is good, then we're all set.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, when I unmute, I can hear you talking.
good. So we've got an interesting one tonight, and I feel like we've sort of talked about things that are adjacent to tonight's topic of should adaptations deviate from the source material before, but I don't know if we've ever tackled it directly. I know that like we bring it up when we talk about other things, like when we were talking about what makes a good adaptation. So this topic tonight was Steven's suggestion, and we got him on last minute. He's been a long time patron. We're very grateful for that. So Steven, what made you want to talk about this?
Well, one of the recent movies that came out from DreamWorks was called The Bad Guys, and I recently found out like the movie The Bad Guys was based on the book called The Bad Guys, and besides the characters and the title, they have nothing to do with each other. But at least from what I heard, both the book and the movie were good. So maybe think how can the medium itself can deviate from the source material or for it to be good and all that stuff. So there it is.
Yeah, and something you had told me about right before we went live here is that How to Train Your Dragon was based on, or at least inspired by a book. So that's certainly something we can talk about here. But before we do that, I'm going to give a shout out to my very generous supporters on Patreon who make the show possible, especially those on the $10 and up tier. These guys are Princess Heather Blossom, Shady Oak Ministries, Sid McConroy, Autoknight, Emerald Spencer, Senko, DJ Skywalker, Rein-Kun, Morningstar, Pony Cordero, who's with us tonight, QFlash, Billy Henline, Alden MacManx, EasyModeGamer, Kanto Acrylic VA, ZoroArc 720, Mr. Sonic 31, Ridge the Hedgehog, and Dark Malcontent, author of the Metaverse series. Check out all their links in the description, and if you would like to get on the show, I'd love to have you. We'll just get you on the Patreon for as little as $1 a month, and you can come and hang out with us and be on the show. So, let's get some more opening thoughts here. So Stephen, yes, do you think a adaptation? For now we'll talk about from books to movies. Do you think that they should deviate from the source material?
Well, I've seen for a fact that obscure titles like The Bad Guys and How to Train Your Dragon is not well known, and it's easy to get away with people either not comparing it to or knowing about it until they either do their research and all that stuff. But if you're talking about like well known,
Did we lose
We lost him.
We lost his sound.
I was about to say, was it just me? Yeah, his sound is gone.
Yep. Steven, I hope you can hear us.
Yeah, we can't hear you if you hear us, Steven. Might have to leave and come back in the call or something.
Oh, we got sound. We got sound.
I hear rustling.
Hello.
yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah,
all right.
The microphone didn't do it for me, so I had to do it like manually. So
okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so you got to be on push to talk on your tablet, I guess.
Yeah. Push to talk on my tablet. So
okay. Well, don't forget to push.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, continue your thoughts.
Yeah, as I was saying, like, where did I leave off before you lost me?
Something about
It's easy to get away with with deviating when it's a lesser known source.
Yeah, but it's harder for popular
Lord of the
titles
Rings.
like. Oh my god! Oh my god! Before we get to that one, Harry Potter or the Hunger Games,
Star Wars.
I don't know about Star Wars. That was basically its own thing.
Hold on a second here. Oh my gosh, Steven, we're getting really bad mic feedback. Do you have headset? Do you have headphones in?
Or earbuds or
Hold on, let me try to find it. I'm so sorry about this.
Okay. So take a second, figure that out. Cordero,
Yes.
how about let's turn the question to you in the meantime. What do you think about should something deviate?
unacceptable.
Unacceptable? Why is that?
Okay, so what am I even referring to? So it's funny, the way you worded the debate was actually going to change my technical answer. You worded it, should adaptations deviate? Under that wording, my short answer, and I have a long explanation for it, my short answer is yes. If you had worded it, should adaptations respect the source material, then that would also be yes. Wait, that's the same answer.
Okay, so how is...
Oh, but it's still different directions, because one is deviate and one is respect. Which basically makes up the crux of my argument. Deviation, especially because you specifically brought up the example of books to movies. The medium of novel writing and the medium of movies are so different that deviating in the movie adaptation is absolutely necessary. In fact, it's nigh impossible to not deviate. The thing that I care about the most, obviously, is that the adaptation respects the source material and specifically is trying to stay in the spirit of the source material. That's very, very important.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that. It's something that, now, I don't know anything about Harry Potter, but something you told me a while ago in another conversation is that there was apparently in the books of Harry Potter a super interesting arc. I think you said, what was the 6th or 7th book? There was like a war going on at Hogwarts while Harry and his friends were off doing something.
That happens in the movies. That happens in the movies too. The camping trip and the year 6 happening at Hogwarts.
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's hello. Yes, I hear you.
Yeah, we hear you, and that seems to have gone. But I remember you saying they glossed over or didn't even bother showing what was going on.
The books kind of did that too. Well, I think the books at least alluded. They said this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. But you're basically following the camping trip of the main 3 in year 7, rather than the many cool things. And that wasn't so much the movie changed something, because they didn't really change much. And that both the book and the movie kind of do not focus on what's happening at Hogwarts in year 7 until Harry comes back, because of course then they focus on what's happening at Hogwarts. And for me, that was what prompted me to want to write fan fiction about Hogwarts year 7. I started writing a fan fiction that was called Hogwarts year 7. I'm creative. And I just focused on what the book told us happened during the school year and just wrote that story and focused a lot on Neville and Ginny and people who were there and Luna Lovegood. You're remembering that conversation, but that was, this made me mad even in the book. That made me want to write a fan fiction. But yeah. So it's a bad example. That was a long rabbit hole for a bad example.
Yeah, it was just
I'm sure we could pull something. We could pull stuff from Harry Potter though.
Yeah, all that to say that I misremembered the conversation from 2, maybe 3 years ago.
Yes.
And,
how dare you?
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, I can barely remember what happened this morning, half the time. So you said that it's necessary to deviate from the source material. So typically, when people talk about deviations, they're talking about things that end up becoming the same in name only, from what they were originally. So which may or may not be a disrespect, and we all agree that disrespecting the source material is not a good idea. But is it, if you deviate like that, can you still do that while respecting the source material, and why. But my main question right now is, why is it necessary to deviate like that? I know you said something that's like it's not really possible to stay 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you explain
the
that?
mediums are too different. Yes, I can. The mediums are too different. A novel, by definition, is going to have, or not by definition, but in practice, is just going to have more details, more side plots, and more character studies than a movie has time for. Because if you think about like an hour and a half, we'll say, excuse me, if we think of like a 2-hour something movie, that's maybe, I'm going to throw out a bullshit percentage because I don't know. That's like what, like 20, 30, 40% of most novels. That would be about how much time you're filling there. So if you go like time by time, if you wanted to take most novels, even if it's just a single book, and you want to turn it into a full-length movie, you already have to make 3 or 4 movies to do the entire book exactly as the book is. So just from immediately, there's already a time crunch. If you're turning a book into a movie and you only want to do one movie, you already have a time crunch, so you are already going to be cutting, you're already going to be condensing and annotating and just trying to make a final story that is the crux, the soul, the spirit of what that book was. And that means somebody has to make the decision of what gets cut. And it's always somebody's favorite part. Whatever gets cut from book to movie, it's always somebody's favorite part, somebody's favorite character, somebody's favorite arc. So it's very easy to get upset about that. But these changes are absolutely necessary unless you're going to make the Hobbit trilogy again.
Right.
I don't know much about the Hobbit, so you might want to explain that one to me.
Oh, well, the Hobbit was actually a very small book, that prequel to the Lord of the Rings.
I know that.
Yeah. So that's actually a really small book, and they turned it into 3 movies. And it's funny, it was the one time that we got the opposite criticism that we always get. And which is always, oh, there was so much more in the book. There was so much more in the book. Oh, they forgot this and this. That's always the complaint. The Hobbit was the one time that they're like, man, they are milking this. They're just cash cowing it. Oh, they're adding stuff that wasn't there. They're going over everything. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. I hear you on the cash grab and they're stretching it out thing, but can anybody be appreciative that finally a studio wants to delve into every last little thing, including the appendices? And finally someone did it. Finally someone did the thing. They put the entire book, nothing left out, on the screen, and it pissed everyone off.
Wow, I did not know that.
And even then, it wasn't just the Hobbit, wasn't it? Like, I thought I heard something about the Silmarillion getting included in those movies, parts from that.
Yes, stuff was pulled from appendices and from the Silmarillion that is related to... So in other words, like the Silmarillion and Hobbit appendices will talk about other stuff that happened during the Hobbit timeline. And basically they're pulling from that to put those storylines in there. So I don't know for sure. I'm sure a Tolkienite can correct me on this. I think like Gandalf going off to Dol Guldur, that's either in an appendice or that's in the Silmarillion. So that plot being in the movie, for example, is then pulling from either appendice or Silmarillion. Maybe somebody in chat can tell me if Dol Guldur is that. But yeah, stuff like that.
The one movie that always comes to my head when I think about book to movie adaptations is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And to my knowledge, from what I remember of the book and what I remember of the movie, I don't think they really missed any major plot points between them. Does anybody else remember those two different mediums of that story?
Sounds like they did their job. Do you mean the 1960s British version, the 1960s American version?
Now, you see, I didn't even know there was a British version until like a few weeks ago when I happened to stumble on it at a thrift store. There was, I didn't even know about that. So I don't know. I'm talking about the one made in what, like 2002?
2000 something.
Yeah, like really early 2000s.
That was Disney, right?
Yeah, the one made in the Linkin Park era, the Limp Bizkit era.
Oh, geez.
Oh, Linkin Park era.
Now, you see, that would have been a disrespect to the source material if they, faded to the closing credits to the crawling in my skin.
I knew it. I knew you were going.
And then they come out with it. And then they come out with the sequel, and at the end of the they roll the credits. What I've done. Get out of my head, Cordero.
One brain cell. We're sharing it.
Okay, so Steven, I haven't heard from you in a little bit. What do you think of all this?
Oh, sorry for coming in late. I had to go to my car and get the headphones. You
Oh,
can hear me right, correct?
Yeah, we can hear you. It was the echo
good.
that I was worried about, but we got that solved. I'm not worried about it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so what do you think about what Cordero said about why condensing for time?
Book to movie.
Yeah, condensing for time when it comes to from book to movie.
I mean, it's you basically have no choice, like unless you make it into like a TV series or some other medium. I can't think of which one though, but like you gotta have time crunch, and things will be left out, things will be missed or misinterpreted if they get cut or whatever. I mean, it's basically unnecessary evil that we either love or hate. But the question is like, what you make, not I mean, well, what you make, can it deliver though? Can it deliver from page to medium?
So something that you would, I'll go back to what you had told me before the stream, Steven, is that the DreamWorks movie that the bad guys that you just heard about, as well as How to Train Your Dragon, were both based off of books, but deviated heavily from the source material in a sense that they might be the same in name only. So can you tell us a little bit more about that and what you know of it?
Well, but like after I saw the movies, like I basically did my research on the movie itself. I want to get to know the director, the people behind it, how they make and all that stuff. And there's that like small paragraph in the wiki page based on the series of books. Like, what? It's like, okay, there's maybe more to this series than I thought. And then like when I found out like when I did like basically glimpse and all that stuff, it basically they have a lot of stuff that doesn't have to do with the movies. Like, interesting. I don't. And when I think about it, if they were to do it faithfully, it would never come as what we saw.
So do you happen to know what the books of How to Train Your Dragon were like?
Not exactly. I only saw part glimpse it, but like I said, it's basically, if I remember it correctly, it was basically what was the kid's name again? With Toothless.
Hiccup.
Okay.
Hiccup. Yeah, sorry.
I need to see these movies.
You haven't seen How to Train Your Dragon?
No, I know I've missed out. I hear how great they are. I need to see these.
Yeah. I'm gonna drag you to the workouts by your ear, dude. So we can start fixing these things. Okay.
Sounds good.
Steven,
go ahead.
Yeah. So, basically, it's the series of books are basically Hiccup, I believe, learning how to be a Viking and various things. It basically starts with how to train your sword, or this is being paraphrasing. This has been a while since I saw that wiki page. How to train your sheep, how to train your or whoever, and in the next series of books is How to Train Your Dragon. And Toothless, from what I remember, is almost the complete opposite of what we saw in the movie. Is like. And like, if I remember correctly, if I'm wrong, please let me know in the chat. And by the way, I can't see the chat, so I can't tell you. Someone let me know what they say. But like, basically, the each and every book series is different, and like, if someone were to adapt this, it would be a totally different series. People would think of like, it would be called How to Train Your series, not How to Train Your Dragon series. You know,
So it's instances like that where things become the same in name only that I would certainly say from what you've told me that what we got of the movies respects the source material, which is the most important, as we were saying, the most important thing. But we see a lot of what we would describe as disrespecting the source material these days. Why do you think... Steven, I'll ask you this first. Why do you think so many studios and productions are bad at respecting the source material that they're trying to adapt. Steven, are you with us? Did we lose you again? Cordero, while he figures that out, do you have an answer?
So if we're talking in the last few years, like the last, 2 to 5 years, I think that it's there's like, and we've talked about this in other debates, it's the modern audiences woke culture movement where it's really changed the way that basically Hollywood allows themselves to write, and Netflix shows and all these like major productions, the way that they allow themselves to write, they really box themselves into a corner, and they really don't care about source material at all, because that seems to be secondary to the message that they want to portray through fiction. And portraying a message through fiction is fine, but it's like, don't adapt somebody else's thing if you don't think that their thing fits your message as it is. You need to do your own stuff, but there's no money in that. So the people who are in the big studios that make the big money, that have the big IPs, the people that are in charge to write those are people who want to tell very specifically message stories with very specific morals that they think are important to modern audiences, and they're basically just manipulating these old properties, and as you said, in name only, are presenting stuff, and they're saying that they're the heroes, or that they're the good guys for doing that. And it's really unfortunate. If you go back even 10, 15, 20 years ago, with the movies that were coming out, people, when I was growing up, people complained all the time about book to movie adaptations, but God, we long for those arguments about book to movie adaptations, when we argued over what was cut out, and if they cut out the right things, and if they presented it in just the right way. What we didn't argue about back then was, did they give a shit at all? Because back then they really cared. Like the director and the producers and the screenplay writers, they were trying to, like, how do we take the essence of this book and put it on screen? And directors were bearing their soul trying to get a version of the book in the movie medium that connected with people, that also pleased the book audience, and also was open to people who had never read the book before. It was a very, very difficult tightrope to walk, and movies did it with varying success. And when it was done really well, it's truly a work of art when it's done really well. But something in the last couple of years, that's not the culture of big productions anymore. They don't care about your source material, and they think that they're righteous for not.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, about that modern audience thing. Well, I don't know who was the first to do it. If someone in chat can tell me, please tell me.
It's hard to bridge a watershed moment like that.
Oh, I don't know who was the first to do it. Like to basically make movies modern, all that stuff. But the best example I can think of is Top Gun Maverick. That has basically, in my opinion, modern movie, but they did it so well. Respect the original sequel the original movies with love. Like you can easily make a movie modern and with because what changed between the Top Gun back in the 1980s and now is special effects. The actors still got it. Tom Cruise still got it even after 40 plus years, and what's the third thing I'm thinking of? Plus the culture is now, it was like or either you're with the culture or you ignore it, and that basically turned to Top Gun Maverick, a modern kick-ass success.
So
yeah, Top Gun Maverick was like a refreshing oasis in a sea of quote updated for modern audiences that are garbage. And also, as far as the special effects go, even with all the changes in CGI, obviously they're gonna have some in there, they still flew fighter jets and recorded actual fighter jets flying, because as good as CGI has gotten, we haven't gotten that good that we can beat actual footage of fighter jets flying.
Not to mention, they basically put cameras in the cockpits, or have basically have the built cameras next to the fighter planes to film it from doing the high maneuvers. By the way, like I don't know if you noticed, but the stunt double that flew Maverick during that like low to ground scene basically said, "I am not doing that again." It's scared.
I hope you got the tape because I'm done.
Yeah, so I don't think that that's a very good example because Top Gun Maverick
That's the
is
exception.
it's a
That's
sequel.
the exception to the modern rule.
It's a sequel unless it was based on a book that I didn't know about.
Was Top Gun?
True.
Was Top Gun itself based on a book? I don't remember. It could.
Yeah,
So it's based on an article.
Okay, so we're.
That's right. Oh, that's right. It was. It was an article.
Yeah, so we're not even talking about adaptations at that point.
I'm sorry.
It still speaks to the larger point of of modern writers thinking that they have to write in a certain way and they don't. But Maverick was an exception to the modern rule.
That would ask the question though, as that would cause us to define our terms of adaptation a little bit more tightly, because what I would have said to the question of what was the first to have this problem would have been Ghostbusters 2016. And so
it's been I'm thinking like
is Ghostbusters 2016 it was the one with the all-female cast, that one.
Yeah.
Is that an adaptation?
Is that the watershed moment that we were looking for?
I
think of an earlier one, it might be.
Well, that was the first one that really got like famous, and that was the first time I at least noticed the creators and the producers would attack the fans. Here I made this terrible product, but you're a bigot if you don't like it, kind of thing. They're blaming all their criticism on prejudices when in reality your movie just sucked. But we've talked about that before. But what I'm trying to do is find out whether or not that type of thing would count as an adaptation. Because
yes.
Is there a difference between adaptation and reboot?
Well, it's not a book to movie adaptation. It's a movie to movie adaptation. And I would consider reboots adaptation because you're doing it again. Or does adaptation have to cross media?
Ooh, that's it.
Like book to movie? Because if it's movie to movie, then you call it a reboot and not an adaptation.
I think so, actually.
So that's our rule. So tonight our rule is adaptation means it changed medium.
Okay, so in that case, Ghostbusters wouldn't count, and Maverick wouldn't count because that's
correct. Those are movie to movie.
Those are movie to movie, and one of them isn't even movie to movie. It's not a reboot; it's a sequel, which is continuing the story of the original. So that
true.
But
true.
Another adaptation that comes into my head was The Princess Bride, and if I'm remembering correctly, the Princess Bride was like we got the movie, and there was a book of it, but the book was about the kid that the story was being read to, him sort of reminiscing about the story, about what it was like hearing the story from his grandpa as a kid, and then finding the book itself. And like I remember the big twist being like he found the Princess Bride book, and it turned out that his grandpa gave the story a happy ending, but the actual ending of the book is, Inigo, they're riding away. They don't know what to do. They got all the king's men chasing them. They got to get to the port. Inigo Montoya's wound that he got fighting that guy is just opened up and he's bleeding out. And they had a good start, but then their horse one of their horses got injured on the ride, and Pheasant couldn't.
Die. It's tragic. The real book was tragic, and that was part of the story.
Yeah, and that was right, and that's another type of adaptation where that completely changes the nature of the story. So, does that type of thing, where the movie essentially gave us really only one half of the story, with the happy ending there, is that respectful to the source material, or should we have gotten the full version of the story where it's like the kid as an adult now reminiscing about all of these things and sort of coming to terms with hey, my family, things were not as good as I remember. My family sheltered me. What do you guys think of that situation?
I'm good with that
I mean,
one.
if we're talking about that, I think we have to talk about every single Disney princess movie ever.
Well, let's talk about the Princess Bride for now, because we can certainly talk about Disney in a minute, but for now, let's focus on Princess Bride.
I never seen that movie though, so I can't give a strong opinion.
How the heck am I the cultured one tonight?
Well, I'll comment on it, and then we can shift to Disney princesses, because that's kind of related to what's happening here. I'm okay with that change. Like, I don't think that that's disrespectful to the source material. Like, it's definitely like a darker theme and explores different character aspects by having that, it was actually tragic and your family was sheltering you, and that's a different sort of artistic nugget to chew on that the movie doesn't delve into. It kind of goes up to that point, but then ends the movie with the book being on a happy note, and then that's a different tone. By cutting out the darker ending, but he was just trying to give me a happy ending to make me feel better. That explores different thoughts that just, how about there's this nice happy story. You could call it simpler or just all of that. And I think those were very deliberate artistic choices. Probably a lot of that decision was based on market demographics. Like, I don't think our audience will like the depressing ending. It's not that they don't respect the brain space that does, but also books are better at exploring multiple brain spaces, of like setting you up for, look at this delightful story that he tells his son or nephew or whatever, and isn't that nice? But then, but it was a lie, and here's why he lied. A book is really good at like giving you this roller coaster of themes and like things to think on and tone, where a movie needs to kind of pick a theme and pick a tone. And that's what they did. So I think that was just a creative choice that made sense for the medium. It made sense for the market. It made sense for the audience they were going for. And it's a very well remembered and respected movie. So very, very long answer. Yes, it is respectful. I'm okay with that decision. I'm sure a lot of people who read the book were sad because people always love how their books went. But yeah, that one gets a pass.
And Steven, what do you think?
Yeah, like he said, it's about tone and all that stuff. If you're talking about a darker story, you gotta stick with the darker story. But if you're looking for that happy-go-lucky or like a happy ending, you gotta stick with the happy-go-lucky ending to satisfy audiences and all that stuff. Tone is definitely important.
So
I can agree with.
Mm-hmm. The next example of an adaptation that I have is Jurassic Park.
Ooh.
Yep.
Yeah, so the Jurassic Park book, if I remember correctly, I'm going to say that a lot, by the way, because there's been a lot of times where I just straight up haven't read these books, and there's times where I've read the books and I've seen the movies, but it was probably a decade or longer ago. So if I remember correctly, Jurassic Park had a lot of different characters. Like, I think the main professor there was there, but I don't remember if he was actually there with his kids. But basically, that was a cautionary tale, and then everyone died. Of why you shouldn't mess around.
Some people lived. Some people lived. They blew up the island. They made it in the book. They made a decision to destroy the island, I believe.
Really? They destroyed the island?
Yeah, they blew up the island in the original Michael Crichton book, I believe, and in the movie they just fuck off and are like, well, that was a bad idea.
Yeah. So they they abandoned the island there. I don't think as many characters lived. There was a lot of character differences, like like, I remember the main professor just hearing about how big of a jerk he was, and that he didn't even really care about his family. He just kind of stuck in this situation that he halfway put himself in. So is Jurassic Park, the movie, respectful to its source material if it's changing that much about the characters and what happens in the story?
I mean, if I was kind to Princess Bride, I'm going to be kind to Jurassic Park. Like, these are two slam dunk examples of, you got to make changes, and Jurassic Park is a cinema classic. So yeah.
So we talked about, but with Princess Bride, we talked about that the book is capable of reaching those
multiple themes.
Yeah, those multiple themes all at once. But with Jurassic Park, you're changing the entire purpose of the story.
Does it though? Either way, it's a cautionary tale of, hey, fuck around with nature and find out. Like man's hubris. It seems like it's the same basic. What's different besides they blow up the island and Dr. Colonel Sanders hates his family. I forgot his name.
Let me think on that for a second, because I guess
what I'm saying? Like it seems like they got the heart of the story out just because they don't blow up the island. It's still and fewer people die. It's still a cautionary tale. Even if only the lawyer died, like it's still like, hey man, this is tough shit. You shouldn't have done it. The message received.
I think you've got a point there, Steven. Do you have any thoughts? We lost him again. Steven, whatever's going on over there, we got to get it figured out, my friend.
All right. Back. He always comes back.
Yeah. So, how about video game adaptations? Now, the first question we got to ask with video game adaptations, especially the ones from like, hey, Steven, how are you doing? So, anyway.
Sorry.
Yep. Anyway, video game adaptations. We're moving on here, especially the ones from, we'll say, the 90s. Can we?
Oh my god!
Yeah, and everybody's brain went to Mario. Okay, you guys should stop thinking so loudly. Okay, I can hear it from here. So did Mario really have any respect for the source material and everything that it did there? What could we? No. Yeah, that was so. But by the same token, what could they have done at the time? I'm going to put that caveat on there. At the time, could they have done with the actors and the technology that they had to adapt a game like Mario?
Oh, easier. It was just a brighter, more colorful, lighter tone, gear it towards the actual demographic of the people who were playing the video games at that time, which would be like the child to young adult. It would basically be like 7 to like 14 range. Like actually gear it to them. Yes, they definitely had the technology to make a brighter, more colorful, lighter toned, kids to young adult movie, like family movie, and they chose to make like a dark, gritty, like anti-capitalist, anti-greed, like a corporate greed message, and just make it like goofy as hell, and also still trying to be infantile and childlike while also being vulgar and adult, and basically making literally a movie for no one, which is what they did. So yeah, I'm not giving them they did what they could with the time. No, they could have made that movie in 1950. They had the technology to make a lighthearted movie.
Speaking of that movie, like I heard that movie production had so many problems. It makes it like I could it's basically reasonable to see how they got what they got. Even I don't know. I can only speak for myself. Even Miyamoto had problems during the production of that movie. But speaking of demographic, I was supposed to, before I got cut off and everything, I was supposed to say this during like Jurassic Park and The Princess Bride. The difference, I can't say for sure about The Princess Bride what the demographic for that movie was, but for Jurassic Park, the thing that made it work was the studio. I in my opinion, demographic was maybe children who basically like dinosaurs as much of a bloody movie that movie is. So they basically exploding island. I don't think a kid's mind can comprehend that for their minds.
We're back to Jurassic Park.
Yeah, he wanted to say this earlier, but his microphone wasn't working. Yeah.
So like a demographic, as I was saying, like the basically, as I was saying, demographic for that movie was children, and when we were kids, we basically loved dinosaurs, and exploding island basically would not make sense to us.
Well, Steven Spielberg produced and directed, I believe, Jurassic Park, and he was never really one for the whole demographic type of thing. He just made what he believed was a good movie. And this goes for all of his movies. He makes what he believes is a good movie, and he puts it out and lets the MPAA handle the rest of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back.
In 1994, 96, when that movie came out again?
The original Jurassic Park, 1993. I'm going to push back on Jurassic Park being a kids movie. Jurassic Park was made in 1993. It was definitely a movie geared more towards adults, even though it had dinosaurs in it. And this was PG-13 in 1993, back when PG-13 actually meant something. It was a gruesome movie, especially for the time. I do not categorize Jurassic Park as a kids movie, and this is also an era of the 80s and early 90s where R-rated properties would end up with toys.
Yeah, like RoboCop.
Yeah, like RoboCop. There was this weird dichotomy. There was this weird dichotomy in the 80s and 90s where it was movie for grown-ups but toy for children, so that they could get all the money, and people were just okay with that back then.
Predator.
Ghostbusters was not a children's property. That was not a children's movie. That first movie is foul when you're talking about like something for kids. But those are some of the greatest toys I had as a kid.
But here's the thing. Back then, I'm guessing people just didn't care, and they would bring their kids to
They'd bring them anyway.
They'd bring them anyway, and the kids loved it. I know that I don't remember this far back, but I know that I watched Jurassic Park as a kid. I know I tried to watch Predator as a kid, and that I couldn't. It was, I'm a wimp. Exactly. No, you think you're joking, but that's exactly right. Listen, I don't remember any of this stuff, but the frilled dinosaur that eats the fat guy in Jurassic Park, you know what I'm talking about?
The Diplosaurus,
that thing like brings out like some sort of primal repressed fear in me. Like, I don't remember this because it's too far. It's too far back in my life. But when I watch the movie again, I see that scene again, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember this sucking, and then thinking now, of course, Jurassic Park attracted a lot of kids. It's dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Kids love dinosaurs. So if Steven Spielberg didn't see that coming, then he's a bigger...
Yeah, that was a symptom of dinosaurs. That was not... Unless Steven Spielberg said in interviews, I was trying to make a kids movie, that was not a kids movie.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. But
how dare you leave?
So hang on a second. I want to... So what video game adaptations can we pull from that we think are any good? I can't think of any.
Pro Combat?
I mean, does Sonic count as a video game adaptation?
Yes. Why would it not?
Well, it's based on a franchise, but it does not. The second movie kind of follows the story of Sonic 2.
Exactly. The second movie is almost literally Sonic 2.
Oh no, it's Sonic 3.
Because
Knuckles.
That one.
Right.
Whichever one it was.
But the first Sonic certainly was not.
It doesn't have to follow the exact video game plot to be the original video game plot to be an adaptation. It's Sonic on screen. Same with Mario.
And Mario's coming out soon, so that's going to be interesting to see how they do. I know Heather wants to see it. I'm not terribly.
Do you want my super lukewarm take, which is actually a hot take because it's counter to everyone else?
Why are you bothering asking me? You know I want it.
Yes. What's his name? Chris Pratt as Mario is going to be completely fine. Yeah, he's not sounding all super Italian and like Charles Martinet. He's just going to kind of sound like a guy, kind of sound like Chris Pratt. And once he's been talking for
Italian.
Yeah, once he's been talking for 30 seconds in the movie, we're going to be adjusted to his voice and it's going to be fine. It's going to be the most non-issue thing ever. If the movie's good or bad, it's not going to be based on Chris Pratt's interpretation of Mario. Mario sounds like just a guy, sure.
A joke I saw on Twitter that I'm totally going to steal is that, what would you say the Mario's voice actor? What was his name again?
Chris Pratt.
No, the
He's
original,
very
the
famous.
video game.
Charles Martinet.
Charles Martinet, yeah. A joke I saw on Twitter is that Charles Martinet should have voiced Bowser, but used his Peruthan voice from the one dragon from Skyrim that he voiced.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
I don't know
apparently,
what that sounds like.
apparently, well, it's a super deep, super gravelly,
Right.
like imagine if my voice actually sounded sophisticated, kind of thing.
Like Smog, like Cumberbatch's Smog, kind of.
Yeah,
From The
yeah,
Hobbit?
kind of like that, but with he was a good dragon. He wanted to like help humanity, and you know, he had a
Okay, but
yeah.
Smog is evil, but similar voice.
Yeah, so anyway, yeah, that's gonna be interesting. So how is it that Sonic is an adaptation with no elements? The original Sonic, the first Sonic movie, was an adaptation without following any of the elements of what was coming from the game.
What
I
do you
think
mean?
it's the story and how well Sonic was portrayed, or basically what they did with Sonic. You know, young little monstrosity in our world, basically having a good time and having a road trip. And people love a buddy road trip movie. You know, so and
Brony,
the story was. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, finish up. I kept thinking you were finished. I'm sorry.
Where was I? Yeah, so like people love buddy road trip movies, and they made Sonic fun for that with the actor, and we saw the chemistry, we saw the humor and all that stuff, especially that Quicksilver slowdown thing. That was awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was definitely fun, but Brawny, you're like, oh, how can it be an adaptation when they didn't bring anything from the game? They brought everything from the game. Like what? They have all the characters. They have the Chaos Emeralds. They have the what did you want them to make a set of Green Hill Zone and have him run on a 2D like across the screen for the movie? Like what else did you need from the video games to consider it like a real adaptation?
I'm talking about
the characters are there.
I'm talking about the first Sonic movie where there was
Yes, I'm talking about the first Sonic movie. Okay, the Chaos Emeralds weren't in the first movie, but like you have Sonic, you have his attitude, you have the whole go fast thing. He's constantly racing and he is Sonic from the games. Like it's an adaptation of the video games just because it doesn't do a shot for shot plot of the first game. And then after they establish a cinematic story of Sonic, they then at the first opportunity jumped into plot points from the actual games. Like it's arguably the most faithful video game adaptation we have ever gotten on the big screen.
Okay, well that answers my next question there of what that was. But Steven, what do you think is the best adaptation? Oh, we lost him again.
Or at least most faithful. I think it's definitely most faithful. It's also really good. It's very enjoyable. Video game movies.
Yeah, and the problem with video game adaptations is largely that it is, well, for me anyway, because I was into fighting games, and in fighting games there's 30 characters and they all have their own story, and whichever character you're playing as, that's the story. So it's really hard to make an adaptation of that. But then you get things that don't even, like Tekken had a movie a long time ago, and Tekken was my favorite for a while. And why is Heihachi fighting his son with axes? You know that like the hatchets come out of nowhere in the final fight scene, and it's like, yeah, they were it's kind of thing. You're pulling stuff out of nowhere for no reason.
Every fighting game that has gotten a movie adaptation has been absolutely terrible. Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Tekken
was fine. I mean, the reason it was successful, they kept the cast small and the story, simple.
movie 1 of Mortal Kombat was fun, but it's still shit. It's not a good movie.
Now
It's
I can see that movie over and over again, and I will not get bored.
me too, but I still recognize it's not a good movie. It's not a good, and it's not a very good adaptation either. Like fighting games have a terrible track record on the big screen, except for Super Smash Brothers, because the Super Smash Brothers cinematic universe is actually really good. Pikachu, Detective Pikachu, Sonic, they're well on their way.
Mario, yeah.
Mario, yeah. I for one am looking forward to the next iteration of the Super Smash Brothers cinematic universe.
The live action Street Fighter movie from 1993. That was that was pretty great. It got close to what like the Street Fighter story was trying to do in many aspects. The animated movie that came out of Japan, I think in 90, it was around the same time actually. That one was actually really good and followed Ryu's story very closely. You got to watch the Japanese version though. Don't watch the sub or don't watch the dub. It completely changes a bunch of the characters.
That's usually how it goes.
Yeah, but with Street Fighter, what was really almost a good one was there was a Legend of Chun-Li, and I think that one was out in 2005. And I
think I remember that.
Yeah, and I was looking forward to it because it would tell the story of Chun-Li hunting down Bison and trying to get revenge for killing her father. And then it had that all those concepts but in name only. Right? There was no Gen, there was no tournament. It was just a really bad spy movie, and the main character's name was Chun-Li.
Wow.
Yeah, so
okay. Well,
and it could have been really good because that was the whole plot of Street Fighter 2 was Chun-Li entered the tournament so that she could hunt down Bison. One reason being that she is an Interpol agent, and reason two being she killed my father. He killed my father. I must get revenge, kind of thing.
It sounds like Bloodsport.
Yeah.
That's
all of those sort of came out around the same time, because that was what like the martial arts community was into, and Jean-Claude Van Damme, sold that movie, and it got really popular. So
sucks that he's old.
Yeah. And I forget, Steven, I lost you for the question again. Hopefully your mic holds up this time. Did you have a good video game adaptation movie?
Well, I did like the Sonic movie, both one, and I'm still trying to get to. I'm still finding for some reason finding ways not to see number 2 for some reason. Not because I don't want to, because I want to, but something gets in my way that even though the chance presents, something gets in the way.
Life.
I did love Detective Pikachu. Like I first wow. I never heard. I mean, I have heard of Pokemon, but I never heard there was a side game called Detective Pikachu. That was fun. I was I didn't think that. I honestly thought the movie was gonna sunk.
A lot of people did. Yeah, that was a big surprise. Good one.
I mean, it's possible for a live action regular Pokemon movie if they tried. I mean,
yep. They proved it.
Yeah, they proved it. So those movies I can think of as a good adaptation of game to movie. So.
The
Witcher.
The Witcher is one. Halo is another one. Now Halo, why we can't get a good adaptation of Halo is beyond me because it's such a straightforward story.
No. I mean, Forward into Dawn was a good adaptation in a way, even though Master Chief was in it for 1 or 2 episodes, but I felt that was fine.
Wait, there was a live action movie? Did I miss that?
Yeah, there was one based on there was one movie that centered around Spartan Locke, And then there was Forward Unto Dawn, which I think was an Amazon show, came out a couple of years ago.
That was an Amazon. That was Machinima, I believe. That was on Machinima. Yeah, just type in YouTube Forward Into Dawn. It captures the spirit of Halo, basically, you know. And even though Master Chief is in it for like 1 or 2 episodes, and that was fun. But when they did the Paramount series, oh my God, why? It's like,
sounds like it was great.
No, my voice. You're playing Goofy. You know my voice is basically screaming pain and suffering from. You know better, don't you dare?
I do know better. Brawny knows I know better.
Yeah, he's a troll.
Resident troll.
He's a troll, and we love him for it. So let's go back to movies for a minute here and talk about Disney princesses, because I remember we wanted to talk about that. Steven, do you have any? What do you want to say about Disney's adaptations of old fairy tales and folk tales? What do you think there?
Yeah.
Oh, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Basically, I basically grew up on Disney princesses. I don't know why. They made the live action ones. It's basically blasphemy. But like when I found out what the real stories were, it's like, oh my God, they're like dark and like I don't think I could actually read the original source materials today, and they would go their routes.
Would you describe them as grim?
Yes.
Yeah, like I wonder where we got that term from. Maybe from the author named Grimm, who wrote very grim stories.
I mean, like, Disney basically at the time were basically like what? Like
we lost him again. That's the theme to tonight.
Yeah, it's a running theme we have.
Yeah, so while he gets his microphone back, let's talk about the animated versions, because we all know the live action ones they're doing are just dumpster fires. I mean, they're not even worth talking about.
Exactly. Well, he was getting into that, like the grim tales, like and like all of these original authors, Hans Christian Andersen or whoever wrote all these old fairy tales. Yeah, they're really like violent. They were always original. They were always meant for children, but like in the 19th century and early 20th century, I guess they were just really okay with children's tales having violence in them. I guess they figure, it's a book, it's fine. They cut off the stepsister cuts off part of her foot to try to fit the slipper. We can tell that to kids. That's fine. Like, and basically Disney did, as far as did they respect the source material? I would say yes, because now you want to talk about updating for modern audiences. This was updating for modern audiences. Modern audiences would not accept children's stories that were vulgar and gruesome on screen. So when Disney's like, let's take inspiration from these classic public domain stories and make them into these big animated features for children, and I mean, it's hard to disagree with their creative choices. That was what audiences wanted to see at the time. It was very appealing to kids. I mean, it turned Disney into Disney. So not only did they make something out of those old stories that was of good artistic merit. What they did had good artistic merit, but I would say that it does respect the original source material, not by being accurate to it, but by just making sure that they still made something that was worthwhile out of it, and still getting like the crux of the story. Because even if you take out all the gruesomenesses and the sad endings, you still have this idea of, hey, here's the message: don't be greedy, don't be greedy, don't be selfish, like find true love. All of those like kids themes are still there. It's just told in a much lighter tone.
So yeah, we can hear you, Steven. So to add on to what you're saying here, Cordero, to give you guys some perspective on how much, we'll say 1950s America would not be able to handle the original Brothers Grimm tales, The way that they were written is it was a big freaking deal when they showed a toilet on screen back then, you know,
Really?
yeah, it's the
Yeah, that wasn't okay.
yeah, there was and you couldn't, and married couples had beds on the other sides of the room, and they had to be separate. Like our culture,
Yep.
for some reason,
Even in I Love Lucy.
yeah, like and I believe like I Love Lucy eventually ended up being the first one to put them together.
Wrong.
No,
The
it wasn't them.
Flintstones.
The Flintstones.
The Flintstones was the first television program, animated or live action or otherwise, to feature a married couple with a shared bed. It was the Flintstones.
Yeah,
then
and I Love Lucy was
and
like
then
from
I
the
Love
30s.
Lucy,
Yeah.
50s.
50s. I'm
This-
all
this
over
is-
the place
this is-
tonight.
Yeah, this is the 1950s. I Love Lucy, at least the first season was separate beds, and at least the first season. But then after the Flintstones did it, by existing, I Love Lucy followed suit. So they might have been the second or something to show it.
Okay, so
Because yeah, later I Love Lucy, they had one bed.
yeah, which is weird because even back then everybody knew that was silly, but for some reason if they were to actually show the toilet on television or show the you know, one king size bed in a married couple's home, that it was going to be a huge controversy, and then when it
Different
happened,
culture.
yeah,
Even though everybody shits and everyone knows that, and even though, you know, kids will know where babies come from largely by the time they reach a certain age, it was still considered just gauche. It was vulgar. You show the toilet, even the toilet existing, that's vulgar. Oh, there's one bed. Oh, the implication. The implications.
yeah.
As you say, the implication is, oh, that means that this man and woman sleep together in the same bed, and and it doesn't matter that they're married. You're showing something vulgar because even the implication of sex was just not okay. Like I'm not saying I agree with it, but it's just a different time. Whether it's correct or stupid or not, it evoked that kind of reaction in people. It's like, I don't want my children to see the husband and wife sharing one bed because that'll put weird thoughts in my kids' heads or something like that.
There are aspects from that.
That's how people felt.
There
That's
are
just how
aspects
people
from
felt.
that time that I wish we kept, and as a culture, and there are aspects from that time that I'm glad we got rid of as a culture.
Like women in the kitchen, man.
Yeah,
we
but-
really should
but
go
that-
back to the.
Yeah, I'm sick and
Someone had
tired. I'm
to.
sick and tired of doing all the cooking in my house. Anyway,
Exactly.
but that my comment there was that's one of those things from the culture that just didn't freaking make sense. Like, I barely understand why, but so. And there's other adaptations that Disney has done, mostly in the animated side. Like I just saw Paladin Pony T. I was about to talk about the Jungle Book and Tarzan and things like that. And if I remember correctly, in the Jungle Book, originally he got rejected by the humans and went back to the jungle, and then came back with a bunch of his animal friends and destroyed the village. And in Tarzan, Clayton was like Tarzan's cousin, and he was like the sole heir of Tarzan. Apparently came from like a rich English family, and they
wait. Clayton, the guy that tried to kill him in the animated movie,
Yeah.
one that got hung.
yeah.
Oh wow.
And
I
Clayton,
did not know that.
Yeah, and Clayton, I remember. I'm gonna keep saying it. If I remembering correctly, please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But Clayton did try to kill Tarzan, or didn't succeed, or convinced him like, hey, you have to stay in the jungle. There's nothing for you in England. So, and then he goes home and gets rich off of the family inheritance.
So the movie was actually darker for once. The Disney one.
Yeah.
Because the Disney one, he goes to murder his ass and then gets hung by his own petard.
Mm-hmm.
In the jungle.
And they show the shadow. Oh my god.
Oh, that shadow, man. That's something else. But yeah, but I wanted to make some kind of joke about Mowgli going to fetch the water directly out of the pussy of that tribal girl.
Oh, for God's sakes.
That's what he was doing. I must go to fetch the water. I'm gonna go fetch me that. Bye, Baloo. But the bare necessities. I have some more bare necessities that I'm following home. Have fun rubbing coconuts on your nuts. I found something way better.
God. I will say the live-action Jungle Book for Disney was okay, in my opinion.
What I need to one random thing that just popped into my head because you said Jungle Book, and Jungle Book reminded me of Life of Pi. Now I've read Life of Pi, but I haven't seen the movie, so I should have gotten around to seeing the movie. That would have been a good, because I heard that was a really good adaptation as well, and stayed very faithful to everything. So last question I want to ask you guys before we get into audience participation here is on a scale of 1 to 10. We're going to say in this hypothetical situation, all the respect for the source material is there in the creators. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is faithfulness to the original story to you in an adaptation? Steven, what do you think about that?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I say 7.5. Like, I want to see like what I read or what the source material come from, but I would like to see if they explored different avenues if possible, and they keep the original tone or make the tone based on the movie consistent.
And Cordero, what do you think?
Okay, you said faithfulness, a scale of how faithful they are to the source material, and I interpret that as respectful and like spirit of, like all that stuff I was talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say 10. It's basically the most important thing.
Well, to clarify,
I did give a movie a pass earlier for basically not doing that, but still in general I would say that like that's the most important thing. If you were to ask scale out of 10, how important is it to not deviate? I would say like 4. Because you're going to need some kind of deviation that is respectful, hopefully, that does stick to the spirit of, but like you have to be able to adapt. So I mean, if you have the ability, sure, in a perfect world where you can nail it to the wall exactly the way it was in the book and just like put that up on film, yeah, do it. But like that's really hard to do. So like 4 maybe, like maybe it's something to like reach for a little bit, but as soon as you run into a hey, this doesn't work in this medium, you make a change and you stay respectful.
All right, so let's get into audience participation here. I was only able to find 3 things from the chat, so if you guys saw anything that that piqued your interest, let me know. First thing I saw was Harriman said Starship Troopers is the movie is a perfect example of getting the outer trappings right, so I'm guessing he means aesthetic, but pissing on the messages and emotional core of the book. Everything in the movie reverses the book's morality. So I haven't read the Starship Troopers book, but I have seen the movie, so I don't know if how much of what he's saying is true. Does anybody else happen to know about this?
Read it again, because I do know about this.
So he says, yeah, he says Starship Troopers, the movie. Stuttering problem. Sorry. Starship Troopers, the movie.
Star Trek Wars.
Now you're just making fun of me. It reverses the morality and the message of what the book was.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me what you know about that.
The book Starship Troopers was an unironic endorsement of fascism. Well, that sounds crazy to us now. It's like why would you write Hitler did nothing wrong, the book? But that's not what it was. And in fact, I still want to have the fascism versus communism versus capitalism debate. I keep asking for that one. Because this book was written in a time where you have the early original concept of what fascism was supposed to be. And long story short, fascism originally was just this idea that the best and brightest of society are basically like an elite ruling class, a one-party system that guides the country into the future and is very nationalistic and is very identity-based and nation-state. all of that stuff. These were all like new ideas at the time, and that was the idea. And basically, Starship Troopers, the book, was this glowing endorsement of, yes, we could be a nation state that's very nationalistic and patriotic, and our military is strong, and the highest honor you can do is be of good use to society and serve the people and the public and your nation and all that stuff. And that was like the original cocktail of fascism that inevitably just turned into dictatorship. Just straight up single. That's what we think of fascism. We think of Hitler, we think of Mussolini, you think of Francisco Franco. Like the experiment didn't work. Basically, it's the one between like communism, socialism, capitalism. That's the one that failed the fastest, basically, and we pretty much just associated with evil. So now we look back with a presentist mindset and say, wait a minute, Starship Troopers was an endorsement of fascism, and it's like, yeah, and it sucks, and you can definitely complain about the guy who wrote it and his motivations, but he was not writing Hitler did nothing wrong the book. It was a different time and idea of what fascism could be that was very naive, and the book's good. Good story. I like the movie better. I like the movie better because the movie is a satire of, you want to talk about updating for modern audience, holy crap, Starship Troopers. It turned into a satire of the fascist society, and it was shot like a propaganda film that was endorsing the future as it would have been fascist, and it was hilarious and funny. And a good movie. And the thing is, the book is good too, but you have to leave it where it is in history and say that was a product of its time. It was not pushing these weird, concepts of fascism we have today. It is what it is, and we don't have to like it or agree with it. It's just art from a weird time.
All right.
For me, it's like to me that movie and the book's basically one of the only few times where like going away from the source material gave us something funny and kick-ass. And what about the movie itself? Oh my god.
Gajillion91 wants to know our thoughts about the differences between the Neverending Story, the book, and the film. So that's another
seen them.
Yeah, what I've seen the first Neverending Story. I haven't bothered with any of the sequels. So that's another thing where I didn't know that there was a book. And at this point, I should probably just assume everything is a book before it becomes a movie.
Or an article, or something else.
Well, that's an exception.
Okay.
So I'm guessing nobody knows about the differences between book, Neverending Story, and movie.
No, never.
I definitely know nothing.
Okay.
I definitely know nothing about that.
Harriman follows up with what you were saying, Cordero. Says that's a false.
Harriman said a lot of things.
Yeah, that's a false Harvard Lounge take on it. The director read 2 chapters, ran into that stupid take, and made the opposite, which is was the book saying we need to do better, among other things. I'm not sure.
He's saying that Henline's that was the author. He was saying that Henline was trying to show how nationalism. Okay, here's his original quote for context. Starship Troopers was Henline trying to show how a nationalist country, without becoming fascist, how you could have nationalism without fascism. But I mean, we're splitting hairs on the definition of fascism. Fascism is almost historically a dead word at this point. Like we don't. It just means. Dictatorship at this point is what the word means. But when these concepts of government were first evolving in the post-Victorian modern era, like fascism was kind of an open book of what it could mean. It was definitely based in nationalism and the idea, and I already said like what the origins of it were. And so saying like, no, the writer was trying to show how we don't be fascist. You're being presentist and coming in with today's mindset. You're saying that he was arguing against what we see fascism is now. So yeah, Henline was like, no, here's how we can be just a nice nationalistic, country that's positive in that way. And at the time, that was an early concept of what fascism could be. But it's not That's not how we look at it anymore. There's even historians that they want to bury the word fascism. They want to stop using it because it's such a worthless term, because the nomenclature has changed so many times, and now it's like the marketing, for lack of a better word, the branding on that word is so dead that like it just means evil. Fascism just means evil at this point, and it's really hard to talk about the historical context of fascism. So you basically just have to be like, well, post-Victorian nationalism, nation state, and just throw that word by the wayside, because it leads people to writing like 8 comments in a row of how you're wrong just for using the word.
Interesting.
The first person
he's going crazy in the Discord server.
No, he's arguing against historical fascism. Harriman, I think we're on the same page. Like, historical fascism is what we think of fascism now, and not what people thought of fascisms in like the turn of the 20th century.
And if that's the issue that you're having, it just goes to show how like it just goes to demonstrate the point that you were making, Cordero, about
the word's dead.
Yeah, how the word changed so much that we're just incapable of disconnecting what it used to mean from what it means today.
Yeah. Nationalism is not evil. Harriman just posted in all caps. I think Harriman and I actually agree. This is what's wrong. This is why the word sucks. It's like feminism. It's like feminism. It's a fucking dead word, because you say feminism and it means different things to different people, and since we can't agree on what this fucking word means, it means that the word is worthless.
Yeah, like feminism. Well, feminism used to mean egalitarianism, but they said feminism because the women were not perceived to have these rights. So feminism meant bringing them to a station where they can equal and can do whatever they want. And now it's the obese blue-haired chick on Tumblr who tries to get you fired because you said something. You know,
that's your perception of feminism, and a lot of people's perception. But a lot of feminists would be like, I'm not crazy like that. I have a lot of feminists say I have very reasonable takes on gender and women's rights. I'm just a big proponent of women's rights. And so when they say the word feminism, it means something good, but when other people say the word feminism, it exclusively means something horrific, like blue-haired Tumblrite, like you just said.
Yeah.
So that's what, and that's another situation. We actually can't agree on the nomenclature, so the word is just worthless. So if we're going to bury the word fascism, we might as well bury the word feminism and find different words to mean what we say.
I would like to see an actual debate, like on one of these live streams of you and Harriman, and see like if you can still come to like if. I would like to see that, actually. That would be a good fight. Paladin
it would be aggressive agreeing, where we think we're arguing with each other, but we're agreeing at the same time.
Which, by the way, as an outsider, is always one of the most frustrating things. Like, do you have any idea how many times I've watched a debate going, "Oh my God, you guys are arguing and agreeing with each other at the same time." You don't even know that you agree. So the last one I got here is Paladin.
Before we continue.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I forgot your name already.
Cordero.
Cordero. You're the first person I ever heard using nomenclature twice ever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know what that word means, but you're the first person I know about it, but you're the first person to ever use it.
It's often used in like science and chemistry and stuff, but like nomenclature is basically just a selected group of words that now you've got me messed up. I'm gonna look it up. I don't know how to describe the definition of nomenclature. Okay, the devising or choosing of names for things, especially in science or other disciplines. There you go. So like scientific nomenclature would be like cells, mitochondria, chemicals, like the names of the stuff like that. Like that's the nomenclature of science. But nomenclature can just apply to any kind of English language thing. It's like, this is the known nomenclature that we use for this area of study.
I just want to remember, where did I first hear that word in
probably science class.
No. I took science class. By the way, I failed chemistry. I took science class. I never heard my teacher said that once. I know.
Well, that's why you failed. You weren't listening. She said it all the time.
I'm thinking in pop culture, someone said that once. I just can't remember who said that in pop culture.
All right, we're getting off track here, guys.
It was probably a writer trying to make a character sound smart, so they said nomenclature instead of vocabulary or vernacular.
All right, so let's, last one I got here, Paladin Pony T. A lot of people don't know about the Black Cauldron being a book. I didn't know for a long time until I watched a video about it. The anime Deltora Quest came from a book series as well, so I've never seen or heard of Deltora Quest. Anime, you know what? I can't believe we've gotten this far in this debate and not talked about anime adaptations, because that runs into other problems of manga
to anime.
Yeah, how well they can, because on one hand you get the problem of animation is really gosh darn expensive and takes a long time to make, so you have to cut a lot of stuff from the stories. But then you get the shonen problem where the anime catches up, and then but you're still expected to make a show, make an episode every week, so you have to just invent story. And
One Piece is the only one that still does that.
The word for that is just filler, and Naruto's notorious for filler. Bleach had some of the worst filler ever because there were multiple years between arcs while the comic was still going on. Dragon Ball Z had a lot of filler as well. But the thing with Dragon Ball Z's filler, most of the time it still played into the story that was going on. So it was just like a side story. Like for example, in Dragon Ball Z, when everybody was training with Mr. Popo and Kami to get ready for the Saiyans, the anime detailed that training and had an arc about that training. The manga was just like, and these characters went to Kami and Popo to train for a year while they waited for the Saiyans.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and they also had filler about like when Goku was traveling to Namek. Most of his when all of their travels to Namek were filler as well. But they played into the story. It's like, hey, there was this 2-month period of time where they were in a ship. What happened while they were in that ship? So they added that, and there was the Vegeta blowing up Arlia was filler as well. That didn't happen in the manga, but we're like, hey, we got these two characters.
She didn't tell me that. She didn't tell me that because basically I kind of like that story. Vegeta.
But that's the point that I'm making, is that when Dragon Ball Z did filler, it played into the actual story. It's like, hey, what happened during Namek? Here's the intense training we have to go to prepare for these super powerful villains that are on their way.
Filler.
It's filler.
That's not filler. Fake Namek is filler. Training for Namek is not filler.
Last I checked, like when they did that simulated fight against the Saiyans, and
because that wasn't in the manga. That setup wasn't in the manga. Hey, yeah. I wouldn't call that filler. I would call that a creative change in the anime, because I know what you're talking about. Like when they went into the hyperbolic time chamber and they fought like those two Saiyans from the past, and then they got their asses handed to them.
Oh my
and then they
God,
came out.
That was like the greatest. That was the greatest defeat of characters ever.
And then and then Kami was like, by the way, those guys are like a quarter of the strength of the Saiyans coming. And it just put into context and scale of how big the oncoming threat was. Absolutely not filler. Great character, great at setting up the antagonist and what's going on. So like it's just so relevant to the story that they're telling that it's like insulting to call it filler just because it wasn't in the manga. That was integral to the anime's story.
Mm-hmm. And then, so what do you guys think about that sort of situation when the animes have to decide what to cut, and then all of a sudden they cut aspects of the story, but now they catch up to the story, but they still have to keep releasing, so they just make stuff up. I'd say Bleach.
I mean,
I haven't seen all of
job than Hollywood.
I haven't seen all of Naruto, but I watched all of Bleach, and Bleach was
wait. What do you mean?
awful.
What do you mean by a better job in Hollywood? What do you mean?
What anime, manga to anime versus book to movie in Hollywood? I think anime has a better track record than Hollywood does, especially recently.
Okay, yeah, I can agree with that. Sorry. But like with this current situation with anime from manga to anime, I think right now it's better than it was before. I mean, like situation has changed. Now they do it seasonal and like I give the material time to work itself out. But back then it was like it was crazy. They just basically have to make the material for some reason, and it's like now things are better.
Yeah.
All right.
Ooh, Paladin Pony's got a good one.
Yes. Apparently, I missed that question earlier, and I just didn't see him write it. So he says, "Do you guys think it is hard to make adaptations of history?"
Yes, it's hard, but it can be done. It has been done well.
I mean, it's hard, but not impossible. I mean, I can't remember last time they made anything based on 1964 or a better example, 1917 or
that's a good movie.
Or Midway, or actually, what about 300? What about that one?
Yeah, so now we're getting into a discussion of so we're talking about being respectful to the source material. How do you be respectful to history? And the term is historically authentic, because again, you run into the concept of, hey, we want to tell this story from history and we're pulling from history. Well, sometimes to tell a Hollywood or a big production story, you can't just do exactly what was in history. You have to take some liberties, and this is where creative direction needs to remain authentic to the time period, even if they end up changing details or adjusting what happened in history. For example, what movie did you just say? There was a joke.
300.
300. Yeah, 300 is a fun movie, based on a comic book. That's actually not historical adaptation. That is a comic book to movie adaptation. 300, as far as like the historical battle of Thermopylae, that movie's a joke. It is absolutely historically inauthentic. Now, Napoleon, the 1970s production of Napoleon that was filmed with Red Army soldiers from the Iron, it was actually filmed with Soviet soldiers, to get those giant shots of Napoleon. Napoleon is incredibly historically authentic and is considered one of the best historical adaptations that's ever been made. Gettysburg is really good. 1917, like you said, was really good. Mel Gibson's Braveheart is not good. It is a
anything
good
by
movie.
Mel Gibson. Shoot, The Patriot.
Braveheart is a good movie.
Well,
the Braveheart. Okay,
I'm
Braveheart
talking
is a
about
good
for
movie.
historical accuracy.
The Patriot is not a good movie. The Patriot is not a good movie. Braveheart is a good movie. Both of them are historically inauthentic. They're both trash from a history perspective. But that's the thing. What we want, people like me who love history, what we want out of our history movies is historical authenticity. We can deal with two people being molded into one. We can deal with stuff being left out. We can deal with things being made more dramatic. But if you remain authentic to the period, to the time, and you give me a setting, a place, characters set up, the way they're talking, and it's all very much the way things were. You pay attention to the details, like the weapons, the dress, and all of that. If you're being authentic and you want to take a few creative liberties with what actually happened in history, absolutely, totally okay. You got to make a movie. Just please stay authentic is what we historians ask. Calling myself a historian.
And then,
now. Wow.
well, I mean, that's one of the things where staying true to the story is extremely important, but everyone's going to have a different story from history. So I would have just as much respect for a really accurate representation of what Thermopylae would have been like as if they had made like you find the diary of someone who was like 13 years old at the when the Revolutionary War was going on and America was gaining its independence, and maybe he never saw a battle, but he knew that there was a battle that the war was happening really close to him, and like he could hear it, and he was just sort of wondering how his life was going to change. Right, and then
are you trying to like roundabout refer to Johnny Tremaine right now?
I'm not intentionally.
Okay, because Johnny Tremaine is a historical fiction about a kid named Johnny Tremaine, who was basically coming of age during the Revolutionary War, and he actually gets involved with the Sons of Liberty and the war and stuff like that. And it's
now
it's
I remember this book. Yeah,
it's completely fictional, but it's considered pretty authentic, if I recall, to the time period. It might be a bit overtly U.S. patriotic and U.S. centric. In it, almost to the point of propaganda, but from what I recall, it's a pretty good historical fiction.
You say that like it's a bad thing. America rules. We're the best.
There's another debate.
We always win. We're the good guys.
Should the colonies did the colonies have the right to independence? That'd be a great debate, and I would love to take the British side. I will dress up in a white wig, and I will dress up in a white wig, and I will bring up the 7 Years' War, which was referred to as the French and Indian War, and talk about how we, the British, we bankrupted ourselves to protect your asses from the French and the Native American tribes who teamed up to kick your ass, and we went into debt because of that, and we just need you to pay your share back. Oh no, that's taxation without representation. Fuck you, you little baby pussies. Oh, also, every tax that we tried to implement on you, we kept going back on them. We backed off when you cried about it, and we said, okay, we're sorry. And finally on tea, we said, no, we're going to tax the tea. It's not a necessity. It's a luxury item, and we got to make up taxes somewhere. And you freaked out and threw it off the boat and started all of this shit.
Adjusting for inflation,
lied. And you lied about the Boston Massacre. It was not a fucking massacre. It was a mob attacking soldiers, and 5 people died. 5 people dying in a tragedy is not a massacre. Oh, I want to have this debate so bad. I will absolutely take the British side. Loyalist over here. By the way, a third of the country, a third of the colonies were loyalists. A third of the colonies were loyalists. A third of the colonies were revolutionaries, and another third were in the middle. It was not the majority of people. 1/3 of the people wanted independence. 1/3.
I think you're killing. Yeah, you're killing Steven.
Did I mention I like history?
Yeah. It's a fun little tidbit I learned a little while ago. I think it was like last year I learned this. When you adjust the Boston Tea Party for inflation, they did like a couple $1 million worth of damage.
Oh yeah. It was nuts. Close the harbor.
Yeah.
Close the harbor and punish the rebels.
Oh jeez. So that brings me to Joe Crazy's comment here is how would we rate The Woman King? Now I haven't seen The Woman King and I'm not going to, but from what I understand is like they took the story of this group of warrior women from Africa, and they just completely flipped the history on its head about how they defended themselves from the French. And if I remember correctly, in actuality, they were the aggressors and they were the slave traders, and the French were like, hey, we don't want to really do the slave trade anymore, and they attacked them for it and got their butts handed to them in literally like a half hour.
Wow, I did not know that was an actual thing.
Yeah, so they're trying to portray this as this Woman King movie as historically accurate and tell the story and honor those warriors, but it's absolutely not at all accurate, and it's got that problem that we talk about all the time where the creators are being pricks. So I'm not gonna watch it. If anything, it's not even worth talking about. Stop being a prick. And
why'd you bring it up?
Well, Joe Crazy brought it up, and I'm just giving my opinion. And if I'm lucky, this will be the only time I ever talk about The Woman King. This will be the only time anybody ever talks about The Woman King, and it will fade into obscurity with the people who made it.
Okay.
That is my opinion. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share on that topic?
Nope.
Alrighty then. So that's all we've got for audience participation there.
Harriman is splitting hairs with me again. I know the Boston Tea Party was not part of the Revolutionary War. Yes, the Boston Tea Party was in 1773. I was giving the build-up and context to the Revolutionary War. The first shots were fired in Lexington 3 years later in 1776, when the British regulars were trying to confiscate weapons that the revolutionary militias might be able to use, and that's when the first shots were fired. And we had Lexington, Concord, and Bunker Hill back to back British aggression, and that it was 3 years later. It was 3 years after the Boston Tea Party. I know that. Obviously, I was giving context. Sorry. You've got to put me versus Harriman in something. Like, we trigger each other so easily.
I would love that.
Oh God, I'm
sure
dying laughing.
You know what? We'll bring him on when you want to. When we finally get around to doing your communism versus capitalism debate.
Versus fascism debate. Yeah.
Fascism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We'll bring him on for that. I'm just gonna sit. I'm gonna sit back with a bowl of popcorn. Okay, I have my thoughts, but I'm gonna sit back with a bowl of popcorn and watch you two kill each other. It's gonna be great. So thanks everybody for coming out and watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. Steven, did you have fun tonight?
Oh, I have fun. Like
Good.
The last part, and like dude, you almost killed me with the whole rant history thing.
So Steven, real quick, tell me one thing you learned tonight.
Wow, like there are various opinions about this, about adaptations and all that stuff. It's I don't know where to even start, but it's good. It's good that we talked about this, and I'm glad that you invite me and everything.
Well, thank you for suggesting such a great topic.
Yeah. Oh my God, I didn't think we'd get to the history part. I mean, I wanted to get to the manga part, but thanks to you, we got to that part. But the history thing was way back in my dark little mind. There is like when you brought it up. Oh wow, I didn't even give 2 seconds about that. But thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Yep. Oh, one thing I think is really cool about the show is you never really know where it's gonna go. So, Cordero, one thing you learned tonight.
I'm pretty sure I did the teaching tonight. Did I not?
You did a lot of teaching tonight.
Well, hey, half of what you learn is what you teach to other people. So, you're welcome, me and everyone. I learned from me.
I would definitely say I learned that that an adaptation does not necessarily need to include elements from the original. That, going back to what we were talking about with Sonic there, I'm not sure I agree, but that I don't know. I just need to sit and meditate on it for a while.
It doesn't need to be a storyboard copy to count as a video game adaptation. Especially because video game storytelling, especially in that era, was not exactly linear.
Yep.
I think the more important thing is execution, and that's how you get it good.
Yep. So if you guys are out there listening and you'd like to be on the show, I'd love to have you. We'll just get you on the Patreon for $1 a month, and you get into the Discord server where you can hang out with me, Steven, Cordero, watch Harriman do his debates in the symposium like he often does. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm very grateful to all of my generous supporters on Patreon, especially the $10 and up tier. These guys are Princess Heather Blossom, Shady Oak Ministry, Sid McConroy, Autoknight, Emerald Spencer, Senko, DJ Skywalker, Rein-Kun, Morningstar, Cordero, who joined us tonight, QFlash, Billy Henline, Alden MacManx, EasyModeGamer, Kanto Acrylic VA, Zoroark 720, Mr. Sonic 31, Ridge the Hedgehog, and Dark Malcontent, author of the Metaverse series. Check out all their links in the description. They make some pretty good stuff themselves. And with that, I will see you all next time. Next Friday, there will be no stream next Friday. That's Black Friday. I'm going to be out of town visiting my family. I'm going to try to do a double stream the following week, though, sometime before the end of the month, because I'm trying to milk that Patreon money. I just had to buy a new phone, so I'm a little tight on it right now.
Right. Sales.
Yep. I will shamelessly self-plug. I have no morals anymore. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Until the next time, Until the next time I see you, stay safe. God bless. Say good night.
Good night.